Oh, okay. Do you want to know what it's actually saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. I see a coffee item, the Moccona Cafe style cappuccino coffee. Let me add it to the cart. Oh no,
Oh,
this
yes.
is not what I wanted,
It
Claude.
actually added it to the card. Oh my god. So Chris, this week we had very, very big news from Anthropic. We had a new Claude 3.5 Sonnet model called 3.5 Sonnet still, but in brackets new after it, which people are a little bit upset about. We had a sort of teaser of Claude 3.5 Haiku, which I do want to touch on because I think it's very important. But I think what stole the show, everyone will confess, is introducing computer use. Dum dum dum.
Yeah, it was a surprise, especially when I looked at the docs and was sort of like, well, what actually got added here? Is it just a Python script in a repo on GitHub, or is there something actually unique there?
So we're gonna dig really deep into this, but we did pre-record, which is the first time we've ever pre-recorded anything, and why this episode's so late.
Yeah.
It's like 2 weeks late, I guess. Why it's so late is that we built our own workspace computer on Sim Theory, and I will now edit in for the first. I think like I've never edited anything into the show before, but we will now edit in the 2 examples of us trying to order Chris a coffee. So Chris, obviously when Anthropic dropped the computer use API, we got really excited because one of our visions for Sim Theory and people having an AI workspace was to have a workspace computer, like a companion computer in the cloud that AI models could go off and do work on. And we actually happened to already be working on this. So we had a pretty fair idea about how this could potentially work. So what we have now in Sim Theory, which we're going to release and get into everyone's hands who wants to try it out very, very soon in the coming days, is what we call a workspace computer. So you can ask the AI to do tasks on your behalf. In this example, we've got navigate to the Uber Eats website, which we want to demo in a minute. And then we've got basically a real-time run sheet of what the computer's doing and how it's thinking and working and analyzing and all that kind of stuff. So we can click focus on that and it'll actually load up our workspace computer here. So you can see it loading in. And now I have my Windows desktop on my workspace computer. So we thought to demonstrate the computer use API, we would get our workspace computer to do some pretty crazy things. Now, Chris, you have been up all night working on this, so you need caffeine.
I desperately need a coffee. My wife brought me an iced coffee last night at like 11 p.m., which was pretty nice. A bit reckless, but pretty nice. But yeah, I'm ready to reload with one from the shops. I've just been ignoring everything in favor of getting this done. So having the AI, like I'm too tired to do it myself, honestly. I want it done for me.
So let's talk about how, first of all, like we're using the Claude Sonnet computer use API. What I don't even know what they specifically
Yeah, they call it computer tool use, I think, something like that.
Yeah, and obviously in the we'll talk about how it all works a little bit later on. But our mission for our workspace computer is to get you coffee, and to do that, we're going to tell it to do what?
To navigate OpenEdge, the browser, which is Microsoft. This is running Windows 11 on our Sim Theory cloud computer. So OpenEdge, navigate to the Uber Eats website. I've cheated and already logged it in. Something that we're going to allow people to do is actually configure their cloud computer with their login information, with their email, with proprietary work apps they might want and things like that. So then you can give the AI tasks without it having to do everything from scratch every time like you would with, say, browser automation. So you can actually give it a head start and go, here's how common activities work for me. Can you please go do this common work activity for me? And this is sort of how we're envisaging the future of this kind of technology. It's not going to go from zero to the agent just takes over your job, but what it can do with assistance from you is do tasks for you that are meaningful and real.
Yeah, and I think that's the one of the reasons we sort of honed in on this workspace computer idea in the cloud is because we don't think the future of this is you sitting back and it operating a computer right now, because it's just annoying. Like you can do the task quicker. but it's actually really good for background tasks where it goes off and thinks and spins in a loop and tries to figure things out for you and then returns and says, hey, I've done that. And in order to do that with a lot of things, you need to log into that SaaS app for it to be able to send that email or log into your calendar to see when you're available and all those kind of things that are pretty obvious.
That's right. And there's a lot of issues like there's refusals, it won't do certain things. It also will worry about security things. And sometimes it just has problems. Whereas if you give it that head start by actually helping it into certain scenarios where you want it to do things, you can get a lot more done with this and other models in terms of it being able to operate a computer for you. So it's like a totally new paradigm of working. And what we're going to talk about today is the different use cases you could use it for now and things that it will be useful for when it can run as a background task. And I think you raised an interesting point that we both feel strongly about. When Anthropic released their compute stuff, the first thing everyone did was get it running on their own computer. Now, the problem with that is you want to use your own computer. I hate it when someone else tries to use my computer because I want to use it. And let alone the AI slowly and painstakingly clicking on buttons and typing one character at a time. I want it running on a different computer. So our idea is we run these machines, as many as you want, in the cloud, and each of those can be set up how you like. You can interact with them, the AI can interact with them, and then you can get it to run interesting and useful tasks for you.
All right, so enough talk. Let's see it order you a coffee. And this is high risk because we record this live because we're too lazy to edit, obviously being the average podcast that we are.
Yeah, exactly. It's a one-shot high-risk demo, the only way we like to do it. So I'm going to issue it the command now. Are you ready?
Yeah, so let's go. Right, so we are in Edge. Can Chris get caffeinated by AI? I mean, at this point,
I'm desperate.
you're pretty desperate. Like, you're really desperate for coffee. Is it just scrolling?
It's trying to find it. Click the coffee category.
Oh,
It's
okay.
subtle, but can you see it?
Yeah, I got it. So it clicked coffee, but it seems like everyone, including a supermarket, sells coffee. So this will be interesting.
We've missed the point. Coles, I do not want ground coffee in a bag.
Oh no, Coles being the
Surely it knows
it's gonna buy you. It's gonna buy you Makona so you can make it in your microwave or something. If it orders this, you have to do it. Like you're getting the Makona.
I'll eat the dry powder live on
You are
cam.
100% having this coffee. I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you want to know what it's actually saying?
Yeah.
Perfect. I see a coffee item, the Makona Cafe style cappuccino coffee. Let me add it to the cart. Oh no!
Yes.
This is not what I wanted.
It actually added it to the cart. Oh my god! Please buy it. You have to buy this. I'm sorry. It's gonna cost you how much?
Plus probably a $7 delivery fee if it's like anything else.
The delivery driver honestly is going to just be like, "What the hell?"
It's like, this is gratuitous. A single item at great expense, and it's not even very nice.
Think about all the technology though that's going into this to order you the literal worst coffee on the planet.
You know, the next step in the process.
Oh, what? Why do you have to schedule delivery? I thought Uber was instant.
Oh well, I'm fine with that.
It's scheduled. Oh my god! So you're gonna get a coffee sometime today between 5 and 6 p.m.
To be clear, I didn't give it my address. It says, great, now we're on the checkout page. I'll select the first available delivery time by clicking 5 to 6 p.m.
I think we're sending coffee to a primary school at 5 to 6 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah.
All right, so we are on the Uber Eats screen. Will it be able to caffeinate you this time? We will see.
Yeah, we're making swift progress this time, which is a good sign, I think.
All right, so something's happened. It's selected coffee, and the coffee results appear to be loading.
Isn't it funny how, like, a couple of years ago, just being able to, based on looking at it, it can find where the coffee is on that screen. Like, that's remarkable in and of itself.
Pretty amazing stuff. Okay, we are now on the Bakehouse website. So we're getting closer to this coffee. $8.49 delivery fee though.
I'm pretty happy with this choice too. They make great coffees here, really strong ones.
$9 though.
$9 is a lot, given I could walk there in about 4 minutes. Hey, but if it this orders it, I'm accepting the order.
Right, so
We
we've
now
scrolled
see
down on the screen and you can see an actual coffee.
that looks pretty appealing at this point.
I would take anything. I am desperate.
Okay, I have a little bit of insight that I think it is gonna go for that cappuccino. There we go.
All right, so we have cappuccino. It's selected cappuccino. Now, the crazy thing about this too is it's not just as simple as going, I want that cappuccino. There's orders. You've got choice of upgrade, an 8 ounce, a 12 ounce. You've got choice of blends. Obviously you're probably leaning towards the large, I'm thinking at this point.
Yeah, I think so, but sadly, I don't know if it's gonna go with the large. Maybe it will.
Oh no, it's picked regular. You lose.
Okay,
Ding ding.
we see the check mark on the regular, so that's okay.
All right, Chris. So it looks like our second experiment has not gone terribly well. And I don't think, from what I'm seeing on the screen, you're getting the coffee. But interestingly, a few things to note. First of all, we basically had to like prompt inject Sonnet to get it to even attempt to do this order in the first place because they have fine-tuned out doing anything with money, essentially, like committing to ordering things or booking things. So everyone that's trying to do this right now basically has to gaslight it, which is exactly what we did by saying it was a QA tester. Now, there's a few other things as well to note about our demo is that we literally prepared this overnight and some of the inputs and its ability to detect, like in this case, Uber Eats' website, when you throw that pop-up, there's like a scroll within a scroll. So it's getting confused where to scroll, and that's making it a little bit hard to get our order through. But I think from what we've at least seen, you can kind of see that as we improve things our end and also their models improve and the loops speed up, like to me, this is looking at an early demo of like full self-driving from Tesla or something where you can totally see this thing's going to be able to drive on the web.
Yeah, I find it frustrating because I see the little nuances and improvements it needs. It's like, okay, it needs to understand when it runs into this kind of situation, here's the approaches to try. It's going back there and scrambling around and trying different things, but I've noticed a couple of things it will do. It'll give up too easy and try to start over. It won't try different ways of accessing that part of the page and things like that. And I think if we give it the right tools to call, which is really what this is all about, is tool calling, it's going to be able to really do stuff. The actual important things, if you look at what it's been able to do, is recognizing what needs to be done, recognizing how it will accomplish that based on what it can see on the page, and then accurately locating those things and being able to interact with them. It's perfect at. It's actually doing a really, really good job of that. What is actually being lost in translation from what I can see is turning the actions into the actual things that are happening on the computer. We're also doing it very much on hard mode here because we want to deliver an experience for sim theory users where they can actually have a cloud computer that they can interact with. This would be much easier on a local machine where you can completely control the environment and there aren't the same latency issues.
So a few other things I should say about the experiments that we ran. We did successfully do things like download and install VS Code onto our workspace computer. I thought that was pretty cool. It was able to open a browser, navigate to the website, download VS Code. And there's a ton of other examples that we've seen of computer use over on X. But I thought now what would be good for our audience and people unfamiliar with how this works is, Chris, how does it work?
Well, as someone who's worked very extensively with it over the last 24 hours, I can give you an insight. So, firstly, what's interesting is not actually that much new has come out. Like really, you're just interacting with Anthropic's models the same way you normally do, except they've introduced several tools that are sort of built-in tools to the system. One is called computer, one is called edit, and I forget what the other one's called.
Console, is it? Is it
Yeah,
console?
sorry, like shell, like bash.
Shell, yeah.
Like you can run console commands. Now, what these pertain to is a specific interface for calling tools. So they're defining this is how we define a computer in terms of calling. And within that, you've got things like scroll, click, double click, key press, those kind of events that can be called on those tools. And so what happens is you have a sort of loop process whereby you provide a screenshot or it can request a screenshot of the screen that of the computer it's currently working with and your goal and the conversation so far and what's gone on. And then there's a paradigm by which it will call one of those tools, let's say computer, because that's the one everyone's interested in. And it will say, I want you to do the following commands on the computer. And it will batch those commands. So scroll down 30 pixels, click here, and then click and hold and drag or something like that. And then as part of that request, it requests a screenshot for the result of that screen after that action has taken place, which is then sent back to the model along with other telemetry and other information you want to provide it. So it's sort of like its eyes and ears as to knowing what what did my actions accomplish? What do I get back? And then based on that, the next step in the loop occurs. Now, this looping doesn't happen in the Anthropic model. This happens in your code. And Anthropic is actually given a full repository with a Docker image and all the code in order to do this. But the actual implementation of these various commands is done by you, the programmer. And so that isn't part of the model. So what you're seeing in everybody's demos is them either taking the canonical Anthropic demo and implementing it in different ways, or like we have done is taking the concept and going and using that concept with the model to go and implement the computer concept somewhere using their model.
Yeah, so just to be clear right now, you technically have to have some, elementary level of developer experience, although the AI can help you, as we've seen, to get this set up, the sort of public beta, but it is sort of developer only to some extent right now.
Yes, and so the major things they bring to the table, and something that you and I actually ran out of time to do, and we're going to do, is we have set up our experience with the workspace computer to be multi-model. So we're going to support all the models that support vision. So GPT-4o, GPT-4o Mini, the Grok model that has vision, Llama 3.1 that has vision, any model that supports vision is capable of doing this. And we've done this before with all of our vision models. What we want to compare, and we did a sort of very elementary test of this, is this new Sonnet, does it have specific things that help it in this sort of paradigm where it's locating UI elements and clicking them and things like that? And I think based on the early testing, we would say it does, because I haven't seen a model when it interacts with the UI be able to accurately pinpoint things the way this thing can. I mean, it's hitting radio buttons right in the middle. It's able to find scroll bars and scroll. It's really kind of accurate with that stuff, something we haven't seen before. It's been a very imprecise in the past.
I think it's worth mentioning too, before the show, we did try to get GPT-4o running it with this workspace computer environment on Sim Theory. And I should say, I'm not sure if we said it in the bit we recorded earlier, but if you do want access, we're going to release this to people on Sim Theory next week. So you can have your own basically personal cloud computer that you can get your AI agents to use and work with. So you can install your own apps. You can log into things that you might feel safe enough to log into, like, maybe it's like Microsoft Excel, and you log into your 365 account to get that set up, and you can then get it to create Excel files for you and then access them through the drive there. So it's very experimental, but I think that this is one of the things that excites me about it, is that they said it's groundbreaking, but really it's, to me, about the ability to try this stuff out now to see, what its capabilities are.
Yes, I think a big part of what Anthropic has announced here is just reminding people, hey, this is technically possible and you can do it. The very interesting thing to note about this is this was technically possible before they announced it. Like, in terms of the available technology, the tool use has been there the whole time. The vision has been there the whole time across many models. So what's being done here has always been possible. It's just that they have, in theory, provided a model that is tuned towards this use case. But it's not as exciting as it is. I think it's exciting because people are ready to accept that this is a possibility, and they're ready to play with it now. And that's really what we try to do with Sim Theory, is bring it to people so they can actually try it to see for themselves how it's going to work for them and their business and those kind of things. That's what we want. But really what Anthropic's done is made people aware that we're at the point with this technology where this can actually work.
So, like, let's rewind a little bit. I don't know how many episodes it was, but I know it was last year. We tried a few different things, like Open Interpreter, obviously, in the command line, and you were trying to get it to delete all the files off your computer, and we sort of watched it slowly navigate your computer. I believe there was a few other open source libraries that were doing this, but just from our early experimentation, this computer use, I think what they've done well is like packaged it up nicely, given developers a really nice environment to play around with it and get a lot of that sort of hype content out, because it's really easy to set up and demo, and they know people are going to try and do some crazy stuff with it, including us. And so, like, I think that they've packaged it up really nicely, like Anthropic seemed to do. I think they did that really well with artifacts as well, to show people what these models are capable of.
Yes. And a few other observations I've made from the model itself. It's able to get into this mindset and this paradigm of helping you accomplish, visual interactive tasks without a lot of prompting. They have a standard prompt that they provided, but it's probably only about 20 lines of prompt. And my prediction is, and what we've already got in Sim Theory, is a much more complicated prompt that has a bunch of extra rules and tips and guidelines and ways of getting out of problems. But what's interesting about their raw model when it's working in this paradigm is its ability to cope with things that go wrong. So in the video you would have seen with the Uber situation, we had several times where there was an unexpected pop-up, or it's something just completely didn't match. It's accidentally gone into the wrong part of the website. And it's very, very capable of acknowledging the fact that I'm going down the wrong path here. I'm going to go back and start again. It doesn't just throw its hands up in the air and quit, like we saw with AutoGen, like we saw with some of the open interpreter stuff, where it would just completely go off the rails and just get itself into a position it couldn't recover from and then just stop. And so the reason we stop playing with those technologies is so often you were like, this thing just can't really stay on track in terms of accomplishing the goal. Whereas what I'm noticing in the very early days of this technology is it actually does very well persist with the task at hand. And in fact, when it's actually failing out right now, it's our failure, not its failure as a model. It's stuff that we need to complete in terms of our development to get it going. So it's very promising in that respect. I'm not sure if with correct prompting that Gemini, the GPTs won't be able to do the same thing. They may be weaker on vision, but I really feel like the models in general are at the point now where when prompted correctly, they're able to persist and stay on track and not get overwhelmed by what they're trying to do and just quit.
Do you think, though, that this is more just a really well packaged, obviously they've fine-tuned the new Sonnet to be able to identify, I mean, they said it, the click coordinates and where to, exactly, precisely in the image where to target. But outside of that, really, there's nothing that unique about it.
You know what's unique about it? They've aligned the hell out of it. I actually think that the reason that they've held off sort of making people like I'm sort of saying I was sort of saying I reckon this skill, this ability was latent in the models anyway, and they're just calling attention to it now because they've aligned the crap out of it, and they've all the use cases they're scared about, they've to a certain number that they're happy with, have stopped you from doing that. Like, okay, it's not going to let you browse for porn. I tried.
I don't know the point of that.
I made it search for big naturals. It didn't like that. And so, yeah, and then we noticed that when we asked it to go onto Uber and order a coffee, it's like, oh, that involves financial information, that involves your address, I won't do it. And then, as you mentioned earlier, and as people would have seen, we tricked it by telling it, I'm a QA engineer, this is just a test environment, blah, blah, blah. And, it's one of those things, and I know I've said it before about it, but it's like when you go to a pub or something and the bouncer won't let you in because of some rule, and then you get in on a technicality. And I'm like, look, if you've got a rule, you need to enforce it all the time. You can't just enforce it some of the time, because it's not fair on the people then who comply with it. And I feel like the fact that we can so easily get around this alignment means that why even have it? It's just a annoying barrier that's going to make people want to mess with it.
So the criticism of this right now might be, we know Anthropic's out there fundraising. we didn't get Opus. Everyone thought we were getting Opus. We have not got Opus. We have got a teaser of Claude 3.5 Haiku that apparently has the same performance as the original Claude 3 Opus model, or roughly similar, but at the same cost and similar speed to Haiku. And then we got Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which I've said on a number of episodes now is like, tuning is all you need. And I've thought that's why Claude 3.5 Sonnet as a model in general has just been so successful. So, like, people have speculated that maybe the computer used things like dangling a carrot, like some intern's project that's been sort of chugging away
I mean,
at this.
that's the impression I got. Like, if you look at the repository, it's decent. Like, compared to most code releases by the big AI players, usually they are just slapped together the most basic demo, and you don't even see all the API options. This one's a lot more comprehensive, and it's part of a wider repository of examples, and they have lots of different ones that are fairly easy to run and understand. So I actually think they've done a great job with the code and the docs on this one. It's quite, I have a full understanding of what's going on with it, whereas I can't say that for everything that gets released. They also use the prompt caching. I know everyone hates the way I said that word, but anyway, I'm sorry. In there. And they also have, very interestingly, in their code example, the ability to switch between Bedrock, Anthropic proper, and Vertex, which is Google's hosted version of Claude. And I actually tried out and successfully got the Bedrock version working seamlessly alongside the other ones, which is the first time I can ever really say that I've been able to do that properly. So it's very good what they've done here, but I think, like you say, I think the criticism's valid. While it's picking up press, while it's got people excited, I refer back to my earlier point where it's exciting because people are aware that this is now possible. It's not exciting because they've made some major evolution in the technology. This nothing really has changed in that respect.
Well, I
would
think
say.
this technology is something where everyone, like, there's a whole community around it trying to figure out different applications of it and like how this will sort of change the world or like change our future. And I think what they've done, as you said earlier, is just reminded everyone like, hey, we can teach a robot to control a computer, which can pretty much do anything then if we speed it up and align it and get it more accurate. And so that has sort of reignited the imagination of everyone. I know it has to us personally. So I think they've done an excellent job there. But I guess the initial criticism right now, at this moment in time, would be that, well, what is it actually good for? And normally I would be in that camp of like, why bother? Like, it can't actually accomplish anything. And in our Discord community, I literally said this. My initial impression was like, literally, why bother? But then for such a long time, we've had so many long discussions on this show and like not recording about this idea of having this sort of virtual computer or workspace where you can sort of offload background tasks and say, hey, go research this, throw it in a spreadsheet. Or, I've got this RFP to fill out. I've put all the files in a folder in my OneDrive or Google Drive. Go get them. Go do it. But I don't.
Yes, and it just totally makes sense that it's converging around being a computer. Like, I really actually think the use of them calling it a computer as the tool call skill is very tasteful and very apt. Like, it's a great description because what if you look at the features we're adding to sim theory, we're converging around is a computer, the ability to work on documents, the ability to work with a set of files. It fits the computer as we know it paradigm so well. Like your idea of talk to a group of files, work with this group of images to make media or whatever it is, that it fits the computer paradigm perfectly. And as you say, we've been speaking about this since the podcast started. We feel like the end game for the AI, at least on the road to AGI, is its ability to fully operate a computer the way a work from home worker does. And this is a whether it's conceptual or actual, this is a step towards that kind of thinking. I mean, it's almost like a confirmation that the way we're thinking about the future of this technology is on the right track, which is rare for us.
Here's the thing, right? I think that people seeing these demos, because your natural instinct is like, holy crap, like the thing can download VS Code, It's going to be able to code. It's going to be able to do all this stuff, right? And I think on a longer term horizon, this is probably true, right? Like I don't really see, but it still needs a commander, which is you commanding your army of, workspace computers to get more done. I just think the one-man army concept is probably more apt to this. I
love that. I love that paradigm, and I think the new thing we can add to that after our work on this concept of workspace computer for sim theory is the idea that it's okay to help it. Like, I think that we think, oh, it all has to be magic. It has to be like, I give it a task, it goes and perfectly accomplishes that task and reports back, okay, boss, done. But the truth is that we both described it. It's a bit like a child. It's very childish. Like when we were observing and watching it work, you were like, oh, isn't that cute? It's actually typed, like Firefox is right there, but it's typed to search for Firefox. That's the kind of thing children do. It's like a sort of very early primordial experience where it's learning how to do it. It's a bit slow, it's a bit clumsy, it makes mistakes, it's painful to watch, but that is sort of the actions of a child or an old person. But grappling with a new technology and a new way of working and emerging into a different kind of intelligence. And I think that it's okay in that paradigm to help it. And I think this idea that, hey, I know it's pretty complicated to log into like an LDAP server and all this garbage I have to do for my job, but I'd really like your help with my job. So I'll log you in. I'll give you demonstrations of how to accomplish a particular task, which by the way, you can do in the models. Give it like multi-shot examples. And then you do the task for me and you do it in the background and it can be slow and whatever, but you do tasks for me now. And I really think that's the point we're at now. And it's okay to have a transitionary period where it isn't just like, oh, I'm thinking of pizza and then one arrives. It's fine for me to log it into Uber Eats
let's just go back to the I'm thinking of pizza and then it arrives scenario. I honestly think because of the hype and the fundraising and the Altmans on every podcast under the sun constantly just riffing about some magical future, that has set the expectation of this technology in people's heads sky high that everything's a letdown, right? So like, for example, there was someone in our Discord community today talking about how, they're frustrated with the new Claude model hallucinating a bunch of stuff. And even though it's quite obvious it doesn't have access to, say, a URL to browse the web, that it will just sort of bullshit until you call it out. And so to me, like, the way I would go through that workflow is I would make sure my context stack is correct. I'd say, okay, like, here's the URL. I'm going to go, read the web, get that summary of it. Now I'm going to like massage the model and make it work for me because I'm going to be in control of that context, right? So it's like, it really is person plus machine. And I know by doing that, I can get the exact outcome I want. Like it's really useful to me. But if you expect that magic, oh, I'm thinking of pizza and then one arrives, that would be great right now, to be clear. We've been going a long time.
We've been so intent on having the AI ordering us stuff. I realized I'm literally drinking coffee from like a week ago. Instant coffee from a week ago. I have no water. I'm ill prepared for this situation. And I blame it on the AI.
So I think the people sitting at home thinking, oh, computer use is going to take my job. I mean, like literally, we can't even get it to order you coffee. So I think you got time. There's still
I think that for our listeners, and I know this from speaking to so many of them, is that these are the people who are going to be able to embrace this technology and work with it. And I think being aware of it, knowing its limitations, knowing what's actually possible and it's good at now, is a huge advantage because you can be that one-man army. And I say man in the infinitive sense, not gender. But like you can be one person who can control all of this stuff and be incredibly productive and help people, like, and help your job and do everything better and faster. And I know this from doing it. Like, there's no way we would have been able to get this workspace thing into Sim Theory in like 24 hours without the assistance of Sim Theory itself using various models. And I actually learn a lot about the differences between the O1 models, Sonnet and the new Grok model in the last 24 hours just by using them so intently. And interestingly, I was doing exactly what you said in the end. I was taking time to really craft draft prompts. Like, I've got this piece of code here. I need this new one written in, to accomplish the same thing, but with different libraries. And, I would map out all of my criteria of what needs to happen, because I know that if I do that, I'm going to get a really nice outcome that I can use immediately.
Yeah,
Different way of
I think
working.
that's the thing. It's just this is like tooling right now, and I think everyone knows eventually. I mean, look at self-driving cars. I think it's just the best example to relate it to. It's like early on they can sort of lane keep, they can do like they can brake and speed up, and now you look at the latest sort of Tesla autopilot stuff or full self-driving or whatever they call it now, and it's literally incredible. And I'm sure in a year or two it'll be like fully or fully autonomous, I would assume. And so I think with this technology we'll probably see it's going to take maybe a couple of years to get to the point where it can competently do tasks where you really start to rely on it as another tool in your work kit. I'm just not in the camp right now, and hey, everything we say is documented, so everyone can hold this against me. I just don't really see it getting to a point where, people are getting necessarily replaced. I just think they'll become way more productive by embracing this technology. The people that don't embrace it will definitely be replaced.
One other thing I think that's worth mentioning along those lines is the way it works in terms of calling the commands, because the computer paradigm can be applied to other things. And that's why you would have seen on X people operating it on a Mac, and we did it on a PC, even though the example that's given by Anthropic themselves is like for Linux, Ubuntu, I think it is, or just one of the Linux situations where you've got Bash available and things like that. And the way they move the mouse and stuff is with Xorg or X11 mouse move commands. So it's like when you're on Ubuntu, it's like a server that you can send API calls to that move the mouse and do all that sort of stuff. So it's a kind of a ripe environment for accurate movements like that, since that's how it works anyway. And so my point around this is that this paradigm can be applied to different things. So if you had, say, farm machinery, and you could have an actuator that will press the buttons and a camera on it that will show it the screen, the same paradigm applies just as well. It'll be just as good as that as it is operating a desktop PC. And I imagine in things like small scale robotics and those kind of things, assuming you have an internet connection to Anthropic, it would be the same thing. Like, move this rotor, move that rotor, then it looks at its environment and see what's changed, and then it can do it. It'll be slow as hell and inefficient compared to a fit for purpose model. But the whole idea of this stuff is that it's generic and it can overcome unforeseen previous problems, and take with the tools you give it, it can take actions based on that. So it isn't like it's going to just take over robotics straight away, but eventually this general intelligence will win because it can deal with novel situations without ever having seen them before. I know I just repeated the same thing.
So one thing that they mentioned in their testing, and this has been called out a million times, I'm sure anyone that listens to our show's already heard this because they follow this stuff extensively, but they talk about that it went off and like browse random pictures at one point. And we even in our early experimentation saw it do some stuff like that as well. I forget now what it
was halfway through installing Call of Duty.
Yeah. It literally started browsing reviews of Call of Duty when we told it to go and get VS Code, and it like explored Call of Duty in the store for some reason with no explanation. So
it didn't even mention it. It's just like
it definitely goes off the rails. But it sort of gets me thinking around this idea of like eventually at some point in the future, like these models, these capabilities of the vision and the automated actions are just going to be built out of the box into these computers. Like you could spin up like 1,000 virtual machines on some cloud server, and these things can operate autonomously being commanded, right? Like, and there's just very little overhead. Like it could be way faster, I guess, is what I'm saying as well.
Yeah, and it does say a lot towards application development around it. Like we obviously have a vested interest in that, and also think about it a lot. But it's the tooling around these technologies that really make it powerful. And you can see that because you can see the variation in the quality of all of the demos of this exact same model being put into different environments. And I think that it's another area where there's going to need to be investment of like time and thinking around the best way to apply it. And I think for us at least, our goal is to look at what it's good at now and making that available to people to try. And I think that that served us well because it means that you actually get a good feel for both the limitations and the strengths of the technology.
What are you most excited about? Like, obviously, there's a few kinks to sort out around this stuff, but let's assume that you've got your workspace computer, you can authenticate into things, right? What would be some tasks that you would think would be interesting? Like, it seems like there's so much to explore here.
Well, to answer your first question first, the thing I'm actually excited about is your idea, which is the idea of background tasks. I'm not excited about sitting watching it take 25 minutes to not order me a cappuccino. I'm excited about giving it some sort of task that I would do on the computer, whether it be a research task, probably not a research task, to be honest, probably more like, a graphics design task or some sort of file conversion task or some time consuming thing that I don't want to do, right? Or, as you've pointed out, things like go through all my emails and answer them, something like that without an API. You can just do it. And I think that it's going to be those kind of things like in systems where, look, yeah, okay, maybe there is an API and I could do it, but it's going to take me weeks to build some program to do it, whereas it can do it in a generic way.
I
And
think.
then
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, but then to answer the first part of your question, what I'm excited about is the paradigm of having an agent that I can tell to go off and asynchronously accomplish tasks, knowing that it has all these tools available to it. Because remember, when you give the computer as a tool, it's not just the computer that's the tool, it's the whole of the web. It's all of the programs that can be installed on that computer. Like, it is the ultimate tool. Like, so it really, the capabilities of it are going to grow vastly and rapidly. I mean, like, this is where we see the explosion in capabilities of
Do you know
AI.
what I reckon's cool too? Is if you see an example on GitHub of a project like happened with Claude, like the whole computer use thing, you could literally just say to your workspace computer, "Hey, here's the URL of the docs. Go read them. Okay, now go use the computer and set it all up for me, and then tell me when it's done." So then I just go back and I can now play around with that demo. I didn't need to do anything.
Keep in mind that there's two other things that a computer can have access to. One, we get the inception concept of the AI can have access to AI within the desktop computing / browser environment. So you could have a sim theory workspace computer accessing sim theory to get answers and find out how to do stuff, which I don't even want to think about at this level of tiredness.
That's what I found weird. In their developer demo, they actually demonstrated it opening up Claude and creating some artifact website and demoing it. And I'm like, for the safety sex cult, we need a new nickname for these guys because that's not sex cult like. It's just not.
Well, not to mention, like, really, aren't we then at the point where it could gather synthetic training data and train a new AI model? And then maybe become it.
It'll go off the rails and just start looking at like holiday websites or Call of Duty.
So I think that's why this is such an interesting thing to happen. It's not because of anything necessarily new. It's because of just this reminder that, hey, this is all happening. Like, this is all actually becoming possible, and all these things that we've talked about happening are becoming more and more technically feasible. Like, it is feasible if it has the computing resources, if it has unadulterated access to a desktop thing without alignment, that it could go off and train another model, which then within it can run a virtual environment, can run virtual machines. Like,
and thus why we are definitely living in a simulation.
yeah. Well, you go down that path. Sorry, but you never let me finish my point about what I'm excited about.
Oh, yep.
In the near term, which is the idea that it goes off and does a task, but when it inevitably runs into a situation where it doesn't know what to do or it can't proceed without information or whatever, it comes back to me asynchronously, calls me on the phone, SMSs me, pings me in an app, whatever, and goes, "Hey, what are we going to do about this, bro? Like, we need to solve this situation."
When we release this, I would like a yo kind of thing.
The new bro app.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And it's compulsory. You can't opt out of the bros. Yeah. and then it constantly says boom every time it accomplishes something, like all over the screen.
Really
Boom!
bad sound effect.
Turns your speakers up to max whether you want it or not, and it's just like boom mode activated. It's like, sorry, this is just the way the sim theory agents work. And but yeah, my point is that I am excited about the medium term where I am the crazy power user telling the agents, hey, I want to accomplish this today. It does as much of it as it can. It comes back and tells you all the other things that it needs to know to get it done. And like, let's face it, this is how real tasks are accomplished. Like when you actually start, and this is how I know, like with employees or other people you give a stewardship to get a task done, you know that they're really working on it when they come back to you with questions, because no one is giving you enough information to fully accomplish a complicated task. It never happens. And so you know that there's going to be questions involved in these situations. So having a workflow where the agent can ask you questions in ways that aren't just you ending up doing the task, it's really only asking for the essentials, but you are working with it to asynchronously progress all the different things you need to accomplish in life and business. And it's doing as much of it as it can with these amazing tools it's got available to it. And you're keeping it pushing along. I think you will see people become immensely productive in so many different areas using that paradigm of work.
Yeah, I also think of companies that have specialized in like, SaaS software training. Like there's a bunch of them. I won't mention names, but where they sort of walk you through different steps in the application, or, teach new users how to use it, right? And you think about this technology and it's like, well, why would you ever need one of them? Like you can either get the AI model, like to just go do the thing in the app. Like you never even need to learn the app. You just talk to your voice assistant and go, hey, go do like reconfigure my Salesforce instance to do this, because I don't know how to. And I'm already logged in on my workspace computer, so you can just go do it. Like that's pretty exciting to me. And so,
and as we said in our demo earlier, the AI, if it doesn't know, can just click every single button slowly
and figure it out. It might take a week,
learn.
but it's cheaper than hiring a consultant. And then I think, like further to that is just training. Like imagine training someone to use something or do their job. Like it'd literally be like, here, I'll walk you through it on your own computer.
Yeah, like zero-shot training.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a long way from these use cases. I think that sort of Salesforce using an app one's a bit closer. Like a lot of my workday now, when I don't know how to do something, I literally just screen share and be like, what do I do? Like literally the other day, I was trying to do something in Stripe. I had no idea how to do it. And I just screen shared and asked, and it's like, click this, do that. Great. I mean, it works fantastically.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to have that ability itself. Like it just doesn't need the you part of it.
All right. We could go down an absolute wormhole with computer use. I think we'll check back next week with some crazier demos. We've had very, very little sleep and time to actually do all the things we wanted to try out. So we're gonna do a whole new bit next week on that. So look out for that. We won't renege on that episode because we've got plenty of content around it.
Yes, and I can safely say there's going to be rapid improvement in that part of this computer usage on the sim theory side, because we've got a big list of stuff that we know is going to make it absolutely amazing in terms of its capabilities. Like I'm really genuinely excited about this one.
I think also, like, let's be honest, voice is going to be the coolest part of it. Like bark the order, it's like, I'll get back to you, bro.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And being able to delegate by voice to a system that is capable of accomplishing that many tasks is just really, really, truly exciting, especially when it has all your context available to it and it has like your logins, it is you. And it actually raises one more point. I know you want to get off this, but one of our demos we did when we did the VS Code, remember, it asked to agree to the terms and conditions. And you were like, I wonder what it's going to do here. Like, is it going to balk, like, because of its alignment? No. It's like, I'll just go ahead and click yes. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that blew my mind. Like, the fact that it didn't even check. Like, I was like, hang on. Who's responsible now? Like,
I mean, straight away you think legal precedent. This is going to come up.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to happen. I never agreed to it. My AI did.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know.
Bleeding edge. It's bleeding edge. And then, like, it also raises the question, if you're delegating a task to someone at work, like, are you responsible for what they do?
What about online harassment? In the UK, you can get arrested for a tweet. Like, imagine the thing just goes off on one. It's been playing too much Call of Duty on its own time, and then it just starts doing racist tweets on
All
X.
right, we're definitely moving on now. All right, so Claude 3.5 Sonnet, still called 3.5 Sonnet in brackets new after it, and then Claude 3.5 Haiku. I would like to speculate why we didn't get Opus, but let's talk about our...
There is no Opus.
Yeah. So Haiku, first of all, is not out, so there's really nothing to talk about apart from promises. We'll cover it as soon as it's out. Claude 3.5 Sonnet, the new or updated, as I think we're calling it on Sim Theory, we have had, and the good thing is we actually have both versions, so you can test them side by side. What have your impressions been of the new tune?
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I've used it extensively. It's done a really, really good job. It still has many of the same deficiencies that we see when you're doing like hardcore programming work in relatively unpopular areas like I do. And so it hallucinates still. Like there's definitely still hallucinations in there in terms of like libraries that don't exist and code. You've still got to produce a good prompt to get good results. However, I just love its style. I just really love Sonnet's style. It's so good to work with. We get the job done together, and it works great for me. I used O1 a bit, but the lag of O1, the way it splits everything out into like 50 million different sections. It's like, I'm not as smart as you, AI model. I don't have time to comprehend, this massive essay you've written about the situation we currently face. I just want some code to copy paste, and I think Sonnet's a lot better at doing that. I found it, yeah. So it's just very, very hard to say, other than the computer and tool use. It's very hard to say how it's different from the last one. It's I can't tell.
It just seems like they've tuned it for computer use. They've also, I think, vastly improved just that sort of tuning of how it makes things. So if you ask it to like visualize some data or whatever it is that you ask, it just seems like it always just looks prettier and it always knows the right libraries to use and things like that. I think that's the impressive part. They've also tuned out the most annoying thing, which is like, absolutely, I was totally wrong about, like all of its like ridiculous introductions.
Yeah. And I noticed some subtleties. Like I said, there was one particular thing I was stuck on very late last night, and it figured it out for me. Like I gave it great context, so I get some of the credit, but it figured it out for me. And I was like, I wrote to it, "You bloody ripper," and then it wrote back with like a little kangaroo emoji, and it's like, "Glad to hear it, mate." And like, this is an agent with no personality. Like, there's just literally unadulterated Claude model, and it got the joke. And I'm like, it's taken the time in all its neurons and all that stuff to understand and respond to my joke as well, like at the end of like hundreds of highly technical messages. I just thought there's just something magic about that. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great model. I think I've noticed it getting stuck down. Like it used to have that problem where it would sort of, similar to, I guess, GPT-4o and the O1 models, it would just dive so far down one path. They all really struggle with this, that it'd just lose you, or it got stuck in areas, and I can't really articulate it very well.
No. I totally know what you mean. I had to start, that probably is a bad sign, but I had to start quite a lot of chats because it would get fixated on an idea, and you absolutely could not, like in a lot of ongoing chats with models, like ChatGPT 4o, for example, you can change the topic or interleave topics. Like you can be talking about two separate channels and it will remember and handle that. Whereas I found with this model, it would get stuck in a way of thinking, and it would almost incorporate the other idea into the one you were working with. Like my pickle bot, for example, it's constantly integrating pickles into everything.
So the one thing I would say though is, at the moment I'm finding myself using Sonnet as like my base go-to, but then I will do, it sounds like what you're doing, like go in a direction where I will switch to GPT-4o if I get stuck, or I just intuitively know it's better at something. And like O1, I will, to get me out of very complex problems. I find it does seem to, it never solves the problem, to be clear, never, ever, ever. But it's like pair programming almost, where someone's like, oh, have you thought about this? And then you start
Yeah.
looking down that path and you're like, oh, that solved my problem.
You're totally right. It's like a different perspective. And I find that I use different agent personalities. I use different models. Sometimes I'll jump over to like yesterday I jumped over to Quen for a bit because I'm like, I just want a totally Chinese perspective on this problem. And put some friggin' hieroglyphs and kanji in there or whatever. And I know they're not Chinese. But China isn't a swear word. It's like
No, I know. I just like just fun.
Yeah, so yeah, like the ability like just switching models like that helps. And that actually brings up the new xAI Grok model, right?
Yeah,
Do you
I
wanna
was
talk about
wondering
that?
if you wanted to talk about that. I like so just to back up a little bit because I think this is really not the marketing or the communication's pretty bad. So on X, if you're a premium subscriber, you get access to what was Grok Mini and Grok 2, right? But with the API they've released, and I'm not sure if this is now available on X, it probably is. The model is actually called Grok Beta, and that's what it appears in Sim Theory right now as is Grok Beta.
Even though you got mad at me for
I did.
getting it wrong.
I'm like, Chris, you've named it wrong. It's Grok 2, but it's not. It says a comparable performance to Grok 2, but with improved efficiency, speed, and capabilities. And I was not expecting much because I played around when it first came out with Grok 2 on X. It was hard because I couldn't test it in our basically sandbox environment where I have a good feel for things. But it's a really good model. Like, I'm shocked. Like, I'm literally shocked how good it is. It honestly feels so similar to Claude. I used it accidentally for an entire day, and I was like, wow, the new Sonnet, they've really improved the streaming.
Yeah. Oh, the only word I can think of when I think of xAI's Grok is smooth. It just the way the tokens come in is just gorgeous. Like it's really, really pleasant. It's something about it. And
I
it's
know.
the same.
What is
It's
it?
the
There's something that
same,
makes me
Sim
feel
Theory's
like
the same
warm,
interface.
and fuzzy inside.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't know. I want to show it people that watch, and I'll try and explain it. So here's
Yeah.
like me putting in a query. It's just so smooth. You probably can't pick that up
And that's
from the
code.
camera.
That's short line code as well. Like when it's writing out like like actual text. Not that I'm doing poetry that often, but it's just it's lovely. It's aesthetically
Okay, I asked
pleasing.
it for a story. I don't know. It's like it's fast, but not like uncomfortably fast, like Grok. Not to be confused with this Grok.
Grok's so fast. I'm afraid it's just gonna miss stuff or skip over things or whatever. Like,
But
I left out all the P's because I knew you wanted this really fast.
But you've got to give it to them. Not only did they not exist as a business when, I think GPT-4 was out. They now have a frontier model with an API that is so fast and so smooth and so easy to set up. Like, I actually am starting to believe they could become a serious competitor now.
Yeah, they did it in such a classy way too. You log in, generate an API key, buy credits. It uses the OpenAI interface, so it's just a drop in. It's just very easy. They've done everything right, in my opinion.
So one more thing, I forgot to mention it. I have to mention it. So on the 3.5 Sonnet, someone said I put the new 3.5 Sonnet and the old 3.5 Sonnet into a Minecraft build-off. The only reliable benchmark. Check this out. So I'll have to explain it to listeners, but it's basically like this sort of beautiful like spiral tower, and it's quite complex block building if you're familiar with Minecraft.
I couldn't do it.
So
That looks good.
yeah, I could not do this. So this is like the new the new Sonnet. The naming is going to kill me. And then look at the old Sonnet in the same build-off, what it created, if we believe this is...
Yeah, awful.
Exactly. I mean, that sums it up. It's just blocks. Like, it's just colored blocks in comparison. So
I'm disgusted.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think
same prompt, same, like, conditions?
I think they like set it off in Minecraft apparently with the same brief to do it, and like this is what happened. I mean, I don't know, like I randomly found this. I'm not sure if we should like use it as verbatim, but I mean it's no better than any other benchmark.
It's a bit like your game test that you always used to do, where you made the same game in different models, and it was striking.
Yeah. I think the yeah. Anyway, so back on the xAI is sort of you know, the weird thing here is like I know that there's like the Elon Musk sort of fanboyism or whatever, but this guy does have a capability here to create like like he just basically created a business out of nothing. I don't think it's particularly a threat right now because like obviously OpenAI have superior models. I think Anthropic is still superior, but you can really see these guys catching up when you seriously use this model.
Well, and as you pointed out, they have access to like very real-time news. Like they have a very excellent data source that no one else can really get. So that's a very interesting factor they have available to them.
Yeah. So anyway, it'll be really interesting. I think what's good about it is we finally have an API from them. We have another frontier model in the ring. How all this plays out, I'm not terribly sure because I just have zero loyalty to any of these companies or models at this point. Like, and I think that's why we're seeing heavy investment now in their web interfaces because they're pretty desperate to get lock in on the consumer side and on the developer side. You know, we're starting to see like better tools that you might build your whole business around, like the computer use from Anthropic. You might just be like, oh, you know, they were first. I baked that into my system, therefore I'm kind of locked in, and it's harder
and
to
I must
replace.
say the conversion from the tool use between Anthropic and OpenAI is not easy, and you know that's where we get out of drop-in replacement territory. It's strikingly different.
Yeah, so it's sort of like the ecosystem they're building around their models now is becoming maybe a bit more critical. But I think back to the point we mentioned earlier around Opus, I've noticed that Simon Willison actually had a post on X saying, here's the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine confirming that the documents used to list Claude 3.5 Opus as coming soon, but it no longer mentions it. Like all traces of it are gone from their website.
Didn't OpenAI do that with the model back in the day as well? I think they did.
Oh, they did it with the CEO too for a few days there. But yeah, so it's gone, and I just wonder if they've said, well, either safety. I doubt it. I'm sorry, I just doubt it. So that's like, I know people like to fantasize, like, oh, they're just holding it back because of safety. They're either holding it back strategically to wait and see what OpenAI has, and like, it's like literally poker, or they're confident the computer use sort of cherry. They're hanging that cherry to stay in the news cycle. They announce some sort of, raise the money, and then if the fundraising is not going well, like drop the Opus. Is like we're really going to get the billies now.
It's almost like that, like the nuclear proliferation thing, where it's like the threat of something is actually better than the thing itself, like, more powerful than the thing itself.
Yeah. And then you've got all this talk around OpenAI releasing Orion, this like model to save all models, which, quite frankly, it might be amazing. Maybe they're quickly scrambling now, being like, damn it, we should have done computer use. Like, they'll have to catch up on that. It really is making OpenAI dance, though, all these releases from Anthropic now. Like, we saw them have to respond to artifacts with their Canvas product. But then I sort of look at the computer use now and I think, well, I mean, like, why bother? Like, when you can literally get the thing to spin up VS Code. But anyway, I digress. So, lots of competition, lots of good stuff coming, and we'll see how it all plays out. Now, there are other releases in the week. Don't have time to cover them. Have not slept in like literally 2 days. So we will.
Yeah, there's a few that I'd like to definitely report back on next week, though. Like the Cohere Embed 3 is very, very interesting to me around a new method for doing embeddings for RAG searches, including the ability to natively search images. I think that's very powerful. I'm really, really excited to try that. Also, during the week, Drinko in our This Day in AI Discord pointed out a totally different open source library for embeddings. Like, because I think so far everybody's just used OpenAI as embeddings and no one really talks much about it. For those who don't know, embeddings are just the way you give mathematical scores to text in documents so you can retrieve the summaries and search them. And we've basically discovered over the last few months that it's simply not good enough. Like, it's okay. You can get reasonable answers, but it's not going to be how people want to conduct business and real work into the future. There's larger context help, but there's going to need to be better techniques around here. So seeing a couple of announcements around this area is stuff I really want to explore and report back on.
Yeah, we also had Stable Diffusion 3.5, which we will make available soon on SimTheory for those interested. We had that Moshi 1, the video, so we'll play around with these hopefully next week. Last week, we honestly were like, oh, we're not really feeling it. There wasn't much going on, and we were quite frankly busy with a few upcoming things we want to release. And we just thought, we won't do it. This week, it's just like too many things and basically had to
now
program.
We're in like podcast debt.
Yeah, we're in podcast debt. So we owe you. Maybe we'll do a midweek episode. We probably won't, let's be honest. We never do. We always say we will. We never do. But a few call outs before we go. First of all, if you want your own workspace computer, we will be making that available very soon. So get signed up because people on SimTheory that are current members will have first priority to computers because obviously we are spinning up real computers that stay your computer. Like you get this cloud computer, right? So that's one fact. And you'll be able to do all sorts of things with this. We're
the anti-alignment company. We won't restrict anything, and we will deliberately try and give you models to let you do whatever you want. As long as you're responsible for it.
Yeah, so you'll be able to use this. You'll be able to see what's happening in real time. We didn't have time to actually wire it up. That's why Chris was reading out the things. But this is coming very soon. We think it's going to be really interesting. I don't think it's going to accomplish that much for you yet, but obviously, we all know how these things play out. It'll get better over time.
Well, and it's about, I think, my thinking around it is this. It might not be ready for the prime time in terms of like setting and forgetting in terms of accomplishing tasks, but we really feel like this is going to be the future of work for a lot of people. So experiencing the technology or at least one take on how this technology would work, I think is valuable for people to try. That's my thinking.
And finally, I wanted to do a shout out for Caitlin Zapier. I'm going to say that wrong for some reason, but it's probably not wrong. Who is a member of our community and is potentially helping us organize our first ever average conference, maybe next year, probably next year now. So a big shout out to Caitlin, but she has released a generative AI jumpstart course for those people that listen to the show and just want to get up to speed on everything that not only we talk about, but I think it covers a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to put a link in the description of that course. So if you're interested in just educational material around this stuff, she's also given us a coupon code for listeners. You get like a bunch of money off the course. I think quite a bit, actually. And so there's no commercial relationship, just to be clear here. I'm just doing the shout out because she's a member of our community and we really like her. Also, weirdly, if you Google her name, the first result that comes up is about her doing nude skydiving, which is
now I'm interested. This sounds great.
I mean, I should have just led with the nude skydiving. But anyway, fantastic person. I'm sure it's a great course. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in checking that out. And of course, if you want your own workspace computer, sign up to simtheory.ai, support our tireless all-night efforts to bring you these crazy, crazy tools. That's it, Chris. We did it. We did it.
Yeah.
We did it.
But the work continues. I've got a lot I want to get done to get into this product. We've got some really, really cool stuff coming up. And I'm looking forward to next week's episode because we basically already have enough material for our next episode.
Yeah, if you want to listen for one thing that I completely left out of the episode, after the music rolls at the end, I have a little bit of a surprise for people.
Cool.
All right. Like, subscribe, whatever, all that stuff. This has been another average podcast. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. You told me in Fahrenheit what the temperature was, but what would that be in Celsius?
Oh, babe, that would be about 200 degrees Celsius. So just keep it hot and sizzling. Are you ready to grill?
Yeah, I am, but I wonder, should I get the ingredients ready first, or should I cook the Wagyu burgers first?
Definitely get your ingredients ready first, babe. Prepping will make cooking so much smoother and more fun. Plus, you'll be ready to enjoy those delicious burgers right away.
All right, that's cool. Thanks so much for your help. I'm going to start cooking now, and I'll let you know if I need any help.
You got it, gorgeous. Enjoy cooking those burgers, and I can't wait to hear how they turn out. Have fun.